introduce a new chilling series of classic ghost stories. There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man.
Throughout human history, people have reported seeing dark, shadowy, human-like figures stalking from afar.
Something forcefully took Dennis Martin off that hill, and nobody will talk about it.
Every fifth call I go on, I end up running across a set of stairs.
Hello?
Have you checked the children?
By the end of the war, the Americans started to realize that the Germans had fantastic technology.
In 1989, Al Bielek came forward to reveal his participation in the astonishing Philadelphia experiment, and that he had survived time warping.
And I've said it many times, folks, we are at war. Those who are managing it and controlling the people while it happens are those who are masquerading as government.
When you look at the map, could we be looking at the remnants of the members of ancient worldwide civilization?
The grand architecture. Who built all this?
Ladies and gentlemen, just a word of warning. If any of you are not convinced that you have a tingler of your own, the next time you're frightened in the dark, don't scream.
Welcome to episode number 19 of Spooky Sunday. How is everybody doing? Very nice to see everybody here. Have a good crowd to start off the show. Makes me very delighted. Now we have a very weird show in order for tonight. No main theme, no main topic, but a bunch of different weird stories I thought I'd come and share with you. Can't believe we are on episode number 19 already. Almost 20 weeks. What is 26, a half a year? Time flies when you're having fun, but it's very good to see everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. Now there's a lot of panic in the world, a lot of stuff going on. It's good that we have our little meeting place, our little rendezvous. Nice appointment with the doctor every Sunday night. I will be here every week. Trying my best. Even last week when I was sick, I still managed to put the show out. Hope everyone's in good health, in good spirits, and just ready to have a fun night covering a lot of different topics. I see a lot of people here. Someone was asking about super chats. Yep, we got super chats, got monetized, got over 1,000 subs, all of that. So we're happy about that. Someone seems to be lost. They don't know what chat they're in. You've hit a time warp, my friend. It'll be okay in the morning. Just take 2 of these. Do not call me in the morning. You will be okay. Mountain Rogue, what is going on? I saw Johnny here. I saw Andy Random Edits. I saw Sarah. I saw Just K. So it's very nice to see everybody. Now more people will make their way in as the show goes. I usually like to start it off nice and light. Just say hi to everybody. What's up, Linda? Good to see you. And then just kind of roll our way into some topics. Now the first topic of the show is something called The Staircase. This is not Staircases in the Woods. Some of you may have seen the Netflix documentary, The Staircase. It's a very weird murder mystery that has a very odd defense in it. Some of you may have saw this Netflix special called The Staircase about the murder trial of Michael Peterson, whose wife was found dead at the bottom of her staircase in North Carolina, and what ensued with the legal wranglings and the odd defense that he had. I think that's a very fun story for us tonight. I also have a story that covers a prison riot from the 1980s in New Mexico State Penitentiary that has an unsolved murder attached to it. We'll go a little through the Looking Glass that has to do with a secret government MK Ultra Monarch Looking Glass project. Then if we have time, we'll go down the road of Stranger Things and how it's based on a true story, a little Montauk project, a little Philadelphia experiment. We'll see how far we get into the stream. May have a random cryptozoology story for the end as well. We're just going to play it by ear towards the end. Yes, multiple topics. Now, has anybody seen the... Oh, I see somebody has seen the Staircase documentary because I see the word owl in the chat. So I know someone has seen it. How many people have seen the Netflix documentary, The Staircase? And maybe we can just pull a trailer up or something like that and see how they kind of push this out to the masses. Now, you know, with a lot of Netflix shows like Making a Murderer and a lot of these documentaries, they don't really give you the full story. They kind of do it one-sided. So let me see if I can just find a nice little trailer of the show, kind of get us ready for the topic itself. Now, I do have a little mini non-Netflix documentary. I don't want to get copyright strike. It's called The Missing Pieces. No, but here was the trailer from The Staircase.
I can vividly remember finding Kathleen.
911, where's your emergency?
My wife had an accident. She's still breathing.
What kind of accident?
Down on the stairs.
You know, those classic falling down the stairs.
At the bottom of the couple's staircase.
Peterson's husband is novelist Michael Peterson.
The cop was on me instantly.
There was sufficient evidence to warrant a trial.
The injuries are not consistent with a fall down the stairs.
The charge, first-degree murder.
No way in this world my father ever would have hurt Kathleen.
We're like, Dad, we believe you.
He wanted to give the appearance that this was a wholesome, functioning family. Well, that simply is not true.
Sounds like
Mr. Peterson was bisexual.
I understand you want to pump
It's a bold charge, ma'am. Oh, okay.
the ratings, but give me a break.
I don't think the DA cares about truth anymore. This has become a show.
The back of the head was struck 3 times.
Dwayne Deaver had a pattern of preparing misleading expert reports.
Scientists are not supposed to take sides.
The murder case against Michael Peterson doesn't just involve his wife anymore. It involves a friend who died 18 years ago.
At the bottom of the staircase.
Okay, well, you guys got a much better film now.
They lied, they cheated, they did everything to convict me.
There was cleanup by the police. Shook the foundations of my beliefs in the justice system.
The system is flawed and it needs to change.
This is contamination in the crime scene.
The DA is trying to say that our dad killed our mother.
Oh, we got a nice little murder mystery on our hands. This is a very fun little case. Guys, I'm a sucker for the unsolved mysteries with a nice little twist. So I'm going to start off with an article from All Things Interesting called The True Story of the Murder Mystery Behind Netflix's The Staircase. We also have like a 15-minute little mini documentary that someone other than Netflix made called The Missing Pieces. We'll get into a couple theories about the murder. And then I really can't share anything from there because I'll give away some of the details if I go too far ahead with myself. So let me make sure I have everything in order. Hope everyone's nice and relaxed. Hey, you cannot blame your doctor if you have to be up in the morning. Nobody has a gun to your head, sir. I am not forcing anybody to stay up. I don't want anyone to have any nightmares. But if you stay here, this is on your own accord. Just want to make sure I made everyone sign documents before they came. I am not responsible. So, on a December night in 2001, Michael Peterson's wife was found dead at the bottom of a staircase in their North Carolina home, setting the stage for one of the strangest legal cases in American history. Now, The Staircase was one of the latest offerings in Netflix series of these really binge-worthy true crime documentaries. You guys probably watched Making a Murder and a couple series like this. They're highly addicting, very fun. Now, it covers the story of Michael Peterson, a novelist who in 2003 was convicted of murdering his wife 2 years earlier. The documentary is full of twists and bizarre theories surrounding what was undoubtedly a very strange case. As Peterson said of the trial himself, this has become a show. Well, it definitely became a show. Yes, less work, more Dr. Crocko channel. I agree. We all have to work, though, but sleep's overrated. A mysterious death. Early in the morning on December 9th, 2001, Peterson called emergency services to report that his wife Kathleen had taken a fall down a set of stairs in their Durham, North Carolina home. According to Peterson, Kathleen had been drinking and mixing the alcohol with Valium. When he came back inside from the pool at 2:30 a.m., he reported that he found her lying in a pool of her own blood at the bottom of the staircase. Now, during the 911 call that Peterson made to 911, he stated, "My wife had an accident. She's still breathing. She fell down the stairs." But by the time the emergency medical services and police arrived, Kathleen was dead. An autopsy immediately cast doubt on Michael Peterson's story. According to the report, Kathleen had suffered multiple blunt force trauma injuries to the head and neck. As a result, she bled to death between 90 minutes and 2 hours after the trauma occurred. Now, the autopsy led police to classify the death as a homicide. Since Peterson was the only one home at the time, he was the obvious suspect. The stage was set for one of the longest, strangest trials in American history. Now, people say that a lot. People make that claim around a lot of cases. This one undoubtedly does get strange, though. Now, the evidence against Peterson was spotty, but the investigators were confident that Kathleen had been murdered. While there was no obvious murder weapon on the scene that could be tied to her husband, the prosecutors believed that they could establish a motive. Some nice pictures from the courtroom. Now, this is in 2003 when this is happening. During the investigation, it was revealed that Michael Peterson was bisexual. Investigators discovered a collection of gay porn in his possession, and it was revealed that he had been communicating by email with a 28-year-old male escort. No, this is not the, politician from Florida. This just happens to be a thing that seems to be happening a little too much lately. Now, though there was little evidence to support the idea, prosecutors latched on to the theory that Peterson's wife had found out about her husband's sexuality and started a fight that led to her death on the staircase. Now, we can just back up right here for a second. How hard is it to fall down a staircase and actually kill yourself? You're talking from the top of the stairs falling clean backwards. That's probably one of the most impossible ways to fall down. There's tripping down the stairs, there's taking a tumble, but making it to the top of the stairs, even if you're drinking, as they claim, or on Valium, it's going to be hard to do that straight fall back. I don't think I've ever done that. That's a very just a weird way to try to say that she died, number one. Plus, if you're not present during that time, you would have to go on forensic evidence to prove that that's how she died. So the husband already saying that he knew that she fell down the stairs, how would he know if he wasn't present at the time of the death? So that's just a couple things to think about. Let's talk about his murder trial a little bit. With a purported motive and the evidence that Kathleen had been murdered, the district attorney brought the case to trial. Peterson's sexuality was a crucial component of the prosecution's case, with the male escort he had been communicating with being called to the stand. But halfway through the trial, a new theory emerged that could tie Peterson to another suspicious death at the bottom of his staircase. Peterson spent several years in the military and had been stationed in West Germany during the Cold War. There, he and his first wife met a woman named Elizabeth Ratliff. One night, Peterson was visiting with Ratliff to help her put her children to bed. The next morning, she was found dead at the bottom of her staircase. According to German authorities, Ratliff died of a stroke. Was never investigated as a murder, but this guy's been around 2 deaths at the bottom of staircases. I don't think any of us have been around one, so that's already a little weird. But she had been known to suffer from frequent headaches. After all, the Petersons decided to adopt Ratliff's children and took them back to the United States. For the next several years, the incident was all but forgotten. But Margaret Blair, Ratliff's sister, placed a call to investigators as soon as she heard that Kathleen has also died at the bottom of the staircase. She says, "Are you aware that something happened to Elizabeth and Michael Peterson, and he was the last one to be with her?" she asked. Ratliff's body was exhumed in Texas and transported to North Carolina for a second autopsy that concluded there was no stroke and she had been murdered. But there was nothing concrete to tie to Peterson, but the similarities between the two deaths were clear. Ultimately, it was enough to convince the jury. Peterson was convicted and sentenced to life in prison in 2003 for the murder of his wife. Yep, so that's it, guys. I just wrap it up. Nothing to see here. We got him. We got him, guys. We actually got one of the bad guys. Would this be a spooky Sunday if the case just ended there, though? Could I really just give you a case with a clear, obvious conviction of a man? Nope, we would have a successful appeal in this case. Now, according to Michael Peterson, the trial was a farce from the beginning. The prosecution had stacked the odds against him. Though he was originally sentenced to life in prison, a long series of appeals began soon after. During the appeal process, his lawyers advanced some interesting theories to support his case. In 2010, 7 years after he was convicted, they submitted 3 affidavits from experts stating that an owl had done it. Let me just make sure this thing's on. Make sure you guys heard me there. They submitted 3 affidavits from experts stating that an owl had committed the murder. Now, according to the theory, Kathleen had been attacked by an owl of the night, an owl on the night of their death, and ran back inside only to fall and knock herself out on the bottom step. The combination of trauma from the fall and blood loss from the owl attack made her lose consciousness and led to her death.
What I know for sure is that Michael Peterson did not beat Kathleen Peterson to death in that stairway. It didn't happen.
The owl theory is a ridiculous theory. When you first hear it, you really have to get into the evidence in order to understand that it was actually possible for an owl to do this.
Nobody thought of an owl at that time.
Everybody just rushed to judgment and thought that this was a murder.
Somewhere during the trial, after the autopsy pictures were shown, that Larry thought that the wounds on Kathleen Peterson's head looked very much like bird tracks.
The only real difference, if you will, between our theory at trial and the owl theory is the initial infliction of the wounds.
The expert witness who said that it was blunt force trauma couldn't explain how many blows to the head would be made by this trident form. And he said, well, I really don't know. It's a very unusual shape. And that's because it wasn't blunt force trauma. It was made by the owl.
When you look at the wounds on Kathleen's head, the theory that a raptor caused those wounds is pretty persuasive.
And in this instance, when it hit Mrs. Peterson, she reached up and all of a sudden she is entangled with this wild bird of prey, a barred owl.
It should be mentioned that barred owls are known to owl experts to attack people out of the blue, unprovoked, with no warning. So the fact that Kathleen lived in a place where these owls are prevalent and she got whacked in the head by one is not far out of the ordinary.
One of the key pieces of evidence was the micro feathers in Kathleen's hands. She had pulled out her hair in order to get the owl loose.
She had 38 hairs in one hand and 25 in the other. All of the hairs were Mrs. Peterson's hairs. What they didn't realize at that time, though, was that on her hairs were microscopic feathers. These owls are one of the only species of birds of prey that have these feathers. They go all the way down their legs to the talons.
Number one, let's just say, just stay away from owls. These things are fucking dangerous. I don't know if anyone here is scared of these things, but you do not want to be swooped down on by an owl. But this is a wild theory in this case. But this ended up leading to a successful appeal. It cast enough doubt that he was able to have a successful appeal. Now, the weirdest thing about the hypothesis is that it actually isn't as far-fetched as it sounds on the surface. The experts who wrote the affidavits admitted that Kathleen's injuries could be consistent with an owl attack. And Peterson's lawyer argued that the crime lab had recovered a feather from her body according to the report he had seen. In 2011, 8 years after his original conviction, Peterson was released from prison after it became clear that one of the forensic analysts for the prosecutors had committed perjury during the trial, misleading the jury about how qualified he was. He also used questionable methods in obtaining results favorable to the prosecution. So with everything else and all the theories that came out on top of it, they ended up having a quote-unquote expert that ended up perjuring himself. And Michael Peterson is released after 8 years in jail. Now, he was granted a new trial in 2017. He entered his what is called an Elford plea, whereby he maintained his innocence but admitted the district attorney had sufficient evidence to convict him. Taking into account the 8 years he already served, the judge ordered his release. According to Peterson, taking the plea was a hard choice. He said that he decided to take it after his son told him, "You'll never win. Pick up your chips and go home." "I can live with this," he said. "It's not fair. It's not right. I'm innocent, and yet I've got this verdict here." Kathleen's sister, Lori Campbell, felt differently. She said it's wrong that after a jury sentenced him to life in prison for the murder of his wife, he gets to be a free man while Kathleen lies in her grave. Michael Peterson moved into a 2-bedroom condo where he said he planned to begin writing again and visiting with his family. He remains a free man. Now we can get into the owl theory a little bit more. This is a very, this is the oddest part to the whole case.
And it's the talons that we say caused the lacerations, which caused her to bleed to death.
It never crossed my mind until Larry Pollard came to my office a day or two before the closing when it was, I couldn't do anything with it.
I think that every single piece of evidence in the case is much more credibly explained by the owl theory than by a murder theory.
Whether an owl swooped down that night when she was outside, I don't know, but it's certainly plausible. But if we had retried it, would that have been something I would have been seriously investigating? Absolutely.
I mean, they were really going to go forward with this owl theory. Now, owls are dangerous. Owls, definitely a bird of prey. And if you've ever seen them swoop down on an animal, or, I mean, I guess there's footage of them swooping down on a small child. I don't know how prevalent owl attacks on grown humans right outside of their homes are. It seems like it'd be a far-fetched thing, but...
On December 9th, 2000...
Let me see. I have a couple more little pieces of documentary about this. And they get into a little bit of how owls have attacked people. So let me just... I'll find right in the beginning where they talk about this. Someone asked if you could tell if the feathers were planted or pulled. 2011. I'm sure there's some kind of forensic way to do that, but at the end of the day, you're going to be talking about them being... you would have to have the owl that they know that it was and have some kind of matching process. I mean, if you're just going with this species of owl and the hairs match, I think that would be enough for them to go forward with that theory. This would be a defense theory to just get doubt in the jury, not string the whole case around this thing. So I don't think they would be able to tell one way or the other. That's just my personal opinion. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a judge.
Got a hunch that maybe this had been done by owls.
Among the birds of prey are the owls, the vultures.
Pollard reviewed the Peterson case and formulated the owl theory. This theory contends that Kathleen was attacked by an owl while on the back porch of her home. The force of the attack caused Kathleen to become disoriented and dizzy. The bird's sharp talons caused her head to bleed. The result was that Kathleen ran into her house and up the stairs, only to slip in the blood that was gushing from her head. The subsequent fall caused her death. Pollard's theory is inspired by 3 facts. 1. During Kathleen's autopsy, microscopic owl feathers were found in Kathleen's scalp. 2. The trident-shaped lacerations on Kathleen's scalp were consistent with the talons of a bird of prey.
Now, there is one other weird little wrinkle to this case, and I'll just talk about it now. And let me really quickly read this donation. It came through on Streamlabs, and it's the Streamlabs for this channel I have set up, because we have one for Davey Crocko 2 and all the other channels. There is one specifically for this channel if anyone does want to support. It's from Keys, and they donated $5. And they say, not gonna assume your gender, said, check out the Devil Next Door doc on Netflix. If you haven't already, just do it. Okay, all right. Shows what our government and greatest ally are capable of doing to someone. That is the Devil Next Door. Never heard of it, but I will check it out. And I think I saw a super chat from Terry McKinney. What's up, my friend? Said it's Canadian. Sorry about that. I don't know if they mean the owl, but okay. Now, what I was going to say was, along with the theory of the owl, something that I've heard people say to kind of debunk it and also cast more doubt over Michael Peterson is that when he said he came in and saw her laying in blood and he thought she had just died, they came up with this theory that the pooling of the blood and something called red neurons that form because of the blood, that she must have been dead for much longer than he claimed that she was dead because of the dried blood, how it pooled in her skull. And they said that the blood drying wouldn't have been consistent with a recent owl attack. It would have been an attack with a blunt force object earlier in the day, and then he waited, and then called the police. But none of that matters when you get down to it and you have someone perjure themselves on the stand. Still a very interesting case, and I will finish this video out with the theories on the owl, and I'll bring up a couple experts and what they had to say about it. Oh, Andy says this whole story is just a hoot. Now, owls are pretty insane. I don't want to go full Joe Rogan on you, but we'll pull up like a video of like, I don't know, like an owl and they're hunting in their true domain. Now, where I live, I think it's
record snowfall gives
vultures,
deep cover for
other birds of prey. We have a place here that tags them, but I don't think we have any like crazy owls. I'm sure we have something like it, but you see these ones in like Alaska and these other forms. I mean, these things are pretty wild, man. Oh, no, buddy. It's not going to be a good day for you.
The vole's ears are big and can listen out for danger.
It's not going to matter.
But what good is that?
Look at that thing. We've definitely been fooled with how they portray owls to us in the media. It's like these wise animals, you know, they just very smart and wearing their little glasses. I think it's the Tootsie Pop owl. These things are fucking vicious.
If danger makes no sound. Silence is the snowy owl's secret weapon.
Silent flight. That's insane.
Fringed edges of her flight feathers break up the flapping noise that a normal bird makes.
Yeah, I'm all good on that. Jeez.
And her attack is as silent as death. The vole never knew what hit him.
Are you kidding me? My bad.
Flapping noise that a normal bird makes.
My bad, I had it right next to the screen. I apologize. Thanks for letting me know.
And her attack is as silent as death. The vole never knew what hit him.
Never had a chance.
Strong talons of hawks and owls are well suited for tearing flesh.
And 3, owls actually do attack people.
All birds of prey are carnivorous. They feed on other animals.
Owl attacks have been recorded all over the world.
I'm gonna need some video of owl on human attacks before we even jump to the next topic. At this point, I need it.
Including North Carolina. Olivia Maxwell was attacked in 2001 while jogging along a canal in western Maryland.
All of a sudden, this thing grabbed the top of my head and like tried to pull me up, and I turned around and my response was like, F you. And then I looked up, just like I couldn't even see the sky. It was so big. It was like a mini airplane with these big, evil, psychotic demon eyes.
Dwight French was attacked in Oregon, walking from...
Yeah, the anthropomorphism of owls in our society.
Work to his car.
This big owl, wingspan probably 4 feet from tip to tip, kind of buzzes my head. I could feel it, scratch.
The owls came fast and furious.
It got its talons in about 3 times, but it came to my face like 6 or 7 times.
I got hit 3 times.
The scariest thing about this is that they fly silently.
I didn't hear anything. It was super quiet.
And the owls left scratches.
I mean, I get it. I know we have a couple cases here, but they're talking about a full-blown murder of this woman, that he sunk in the talons and was able to kill this woman, that she made it from getting swooped down on and she bled so much that she then fell onto a staircase. I don't know if I buy the theory that an owl was responsible for this. I swear, if they give me content issues for this, I'm going to be upset. So I did get a little, they detected some copyrighted audio in the stream, guys. So if the stream goes down, it's because of that. I can't do anything about it now. We already played it. What are we going to do? Give up? All right, let me see if I have other videos here. I can't play that one, I guess. That big copyrighted thing of a guy saying an owl scratched him. Uh-oh.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the World of Birds.
Children are enjoying a bird show at the Los Angeles Zoo.
Is anybody for a show?
Zookeeper
Uh-oh, that's not going to start good.
Lauren Whittemore is the host, and her first star of the show is a Moluccan cockatoo named Scooter.
That's not an owl. Don't do that to me. I've definitely seen eagle attacks. Every owl attack on a human, though, is just a story. I'm trying to see if there's any good videos. Owl dives crowd of people. Owl attacks fish. I've definitely seen one with an eagle. Yeah, cockatoo. Don't try to sneak that one in there. What the fuck was that about? These things just look menacing, though. That's an evil bird right there. Just hollow eyes, little demon eyes.
Try to catch one so you get a match. It's pretty cool.
I'd like to see that.
Leave. Oh, leave.
There he goes.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm all set. I thought we were going to have some cool attack videos, but I guess now they're just playing around. So we'll end it with just the, letting you guys know that the owl theory was supported by 3 experts. A lawyer for Michael Peterson filed 3 affidavits this week to further support the theory that an owl killed the novelist's wife. Pollard, one of Peterson's attorneys, says the written statements from 3 experts should persuade the Superior Court Judge Orlando Hudson to order the state's medical examiner's office to turn over all documents related to Kathleen Peterson's autopsy. If granted, the information would be used to prove that Kathleen Peterson was killed by an owl, not from blunt force trauma. So he had 3 experts on his side say that, they also support this theory. But like with all cases, you can get a expert to basically say anything for your side of the case. So that's just how experts work in court proceedings. All right. We're going to move on to the next topic of the night, which is going to be the New Mexico prison riot. Not a really spooky topic, but there is an unsolved murder associated with it. Shout out to the one super chat and the Streamlabs donation. Let me just get this out of the way. If anybody wants to support the channel, you can do so through PayPal is the easiest way to go. I will put that link in the chat for you guys. And then also you have the Streamlabs option, which is streamlabs.com/Crocko Show. I cannot change the name of it at this point, so just it's what I got. What do we got, 130 people here? Not bad for the backup channel. All right, let me just organize my links here for the next case topic, whatever we want to call it. This is going to be the 1980 New Mexico prison riot. We're already about 40 minutes in, so like I said, we'll just see where we're at after a couple topics, and whatever we don't get to always just kind of gets moved on into the next show's prep. I like these random topic ones. Now this is going to be the murder of a man named Michael Frank. A bunch of different ways to pronounce it. Now this happened in 1980, New Mexico State Penitentiary prison riot. This was an unsolved mystery case, but there was some other documentaries. You got to kind of try to find the videos that they're not going to instantly copyright like they just did to me. So you get the old school news, which is really nice. All right, so Michael Frank, James Michael Frank, was a New Mexico judge and director of the state's corrections department, the governmental bureau which manages prisons. In 1975, he was admitted to the bar in New Mexico. Early on the morning of January 18th, 1989, a security guard found Frank's body lying in a pool of blood on the floor of the north portico of the Dome building of the headquarters office of the ODOC. An autopsy revealed that the death to be a stab wound to the heart suffered the night before, and also revealed other defensive wounds. And we'll definitely be taking a deep dive into this, but that's just who this guy is. And I just have to make sure I get all my links right in a row here. And this all kind of circles around a big prison riot that happened in New Mexico in 1980, and why this guy was brought in to try to clean up the prisons. So it's a whole big thing.
One of the deadliest prison riots in U.S. history happened here in New Mexico. You've probably heard a lot about the death and destruction that occurred at the old state penitentiary.
But tonight, a former inmate who survived while many did not explains how the rampage started. He shared his story exclusively with Action 7 News reporter Ana Velasquez.
In 1980, Gary Nelson, a convicted bank robber, escaped from another state prison. When police caught up with him in New Mexico, prison officials held him at the state penitentiary in cell block 2.
What's it like to be back here?
I'm kind of over it. I've moved on in my life.
I don't want to be here. How is it being back in prison?
It's good to know that I can leave at any time.
In the early morning hours of February 2nd, 1980, he says some inmates were getting drunk on homemade alcohol.
Nice.
One prisoner had an idea.
Jumped up and drank and said, look, when they come to count, if they leave that door open, we're going to jump them and take over this place.
They were the prison guards, but Nelson didn't believe that inmate.
I'd been in prison before I got here, and it happened, usually what happens is nothing.
Nelson wasn't sentenced to serve time here. He was just waiting to be transferred to another prison. On February 2nd, 1980, this was his 30th day.
Gary, was it just unbelievable?
It's surreal. It really is surreal. I could say that most of the time I'm just apprehensive. I can't say I'm scared.
Action 7 News was on scene during the 36-hour ordeal, covering the riot from the outside.
10-9?
On the inside, inmates had already taken 12 officers hostage.
So this is the hallway where the prisoners dragged Officer Bustos down.
Well, they're leading him. He's on a belt, like a leash, like a dog. He's on his knees, and they're kicking him.
In all, 33 inmates were murdered.
I'm just going to leave that one. Just going to leave that one out there for you guys.
Most were the so-called snitches, hunted down where
you know what snitches get, guys. We all know what snitches get.
They lived in cell block 4. Countless others were injured.
You got people running around out here, stabbing people to see what it feels like to stab people. You got people stabbing dead bodies. I mean, it's nuts here.
But Nelson said, as even more fear set in when they thought police and the National Guard were going to storm the prison.
So, I mean, you're always fearful, but we just said, well, what can you do?
Hey, what are you going to do? You know, snitches get stitches. What are you going to do about it? Andy says snitches get apple pie. No, I never heard that one. A nice southern prison, nice southern hospitality. Now, the prison riot is the reason that Michael Frank is sent into this system, which ends up in this murder mystery. But it's a fun part of the thing. But I will kind of get to the main murder, and then we'll kind of talk about the prison riot that led up to everything. So let me just make sure we're all set up here.
Hey, once you people leave and they go in there, they're going to beat us and beat us bad. But once you people leave and they go in there, they're going to beat us and beat us bad.
There is a surprising amount of footage from this thing, which is great for a 1980 prison riot. But let's talk about the mysterious murder of Michael Frank and how this ties into it. Now, he was the director, as I said, of the Oregon prison system. Get him on screen for you. See a nice picture of him. Now, was he murdered to stop his investigation into high-level corruption? In February 1980, a deadly prison riot broke out in New Mexico, killing 33 prisoners, of course. State official Michael Frank was brought in to completely revamp the troubled prison system. He did such a good job that in 1987, the governor of Oregon brought him in to do the same thing there. Michael Frank told his family that he was going to blow the lid off corruption in the Oregon prison system and implicate several top government officials. But apparently Michael did too good of a job. On January 17, 1989, just upon completion of the investigation, he was found stabbed to death outside his office. Of course, can't be doing that good of a job. Ken of the North says he's glad I'm well enough to keep Spooky Sunday going. I was sick like a week ago, so no remnants of that left. No coronavirus, but $5 through the Streamlabs. I appreciate it, my friend. It's a weekly show. It's like a mailman. Rain, sleet, snow. I have to show up. Now, the DA said Frank's murder was a botched robbery, but his family thinks that Michael Frank had uncovered a vast conspiracy. Bob Merchant, a former Oregon State prison guard, described the illegal activities he witnessed. He said, "I was told by my superiors to keep my mouth shut and mind my own business, or I'd be looking for a new job. The three main criminal activities that I observed working in the corrections were the introduction of drugs into the institutions, falsifying of records, and thefts of state property. Basically anything that was not nailed down was subject to be stolen. There was a constant flow of drugs being brought into the institutions. One of the most common ways was staff bringing them in their own lunch pails. There were no searches being conducted on staff as they entered or left the facility." Now, a reporter named Stephen Jackson of the Oregon Salem Statesman Journal believed that Michael didn't realize what he was up against. When Mike came in, he's got a good old boy system to contend with. A lot of these guys have been here for 20, maybe 30 years. The system has run the way they want to run it for that many years. So here comes some guy from out of state who has all these high-minded ideas about what he's going to do and just rubbed a lot of them the wrong way. Now, Michael's brother Kevin said Michael knew he was juggling political dynamite and that it could blow up in his face at any moment. He had uncovered, he said, an organized criminal element in the system and said that he was going to do a thorough house cleaning immediately after the first of the year. And his quote was, "A lot of heads were gonna roll." Yeah, you try to take on the whole system that's in charge of the prisons and all the money they're bringing in from these illegal activities and all the things they're covering up, trying to send these people to jail, they are most likely going to kill you. Now, Michael's sister-in-law, Katie Frank, talked to Michael just a few days before he was killed. On January 13th, she said, "I called Michael, and he said that he was going to go before the legislature and clean house the following Wednesday. He was very, very concerned, and I think he had uncovered something far bigger than he expected." Just 4 days later, on January 17th, 1989, Michael was found murdered on the side porch of his office building. Police began to piece together the last hours of his life. After the regular Tuesday staff meeting, Michael spoke with one of his employees. Later, 2 other employees noticed that the light of Michael's car was on and the driver's door was wide open. 2 corrections officials searched the building. So you have the same people that he's investigating now doing the search of the building. But Michael was nowhere to be found after the search. The 2 men left around 9:30 p.m. without calling the police or reporting that they couldn't find him. Later that night, a security guard found Michael's body on the side porch of the building that had been searched just 4 hours earlier. The glass in the slide door was shattered, and his briefcase appeared to be missing. Believing Michael was murdered in a robbery attempt, the police interrogated known drug dealers and street criminals. One of them claimed that he witnessed the murder and fingered a drug dealer named Frank Gable. According to the witness, Gable was in the act of breaking into Michael's car when Michael came out of his office around 7 p.m. Gable stabbed him, mortally wounding him. Some believe Gable also stole the briefcase. Michael staggered up the stairs of a side entrance to the building and broke the glass door in a desperate attempt to get back in his office. This is just from a street criminal saying this is what he saw. Now, Frank Gable was going to be tried, and he was eventually convicted of the murder of Michael Frank. But for many people, the evidence simply did not add up. Bruises, abrasions, and other wounds on Michael's body indicate a struggle with more than one person, leading Katie Frank to conclude that Frank Gable is innocent. This is Mike's sister says, I think Frank Gable is a scapegoat because I think it goes much higher up in the Oregon government. He's just being used to take the fall. And this would be a prison system that would have a known criminal and a known fall guy and, a bunch of ways of framing somebody to make sure that they got him. All right. Reporter Stephen Jackson believes the media made a rush to judgment. From the onset of the investigation, it appeared the police put blinders on as far as what they were most inclined to believe. Michael's family and supporters found discrepancies in the official report of his death. Michael had a state-of-the-art car alarm system. If the killer broke into the car, why was the alarm not set off? And why was there no signs of forced entry? The police believe Michael was stabbed at the car, puncturing his heart and lungs. But why was there no trace of blood within 100 feet of the car? I mean, that right there, you have to question the scene. If someone is stabbed at their car, and that was what the witness said, and there's no blood between him and 100 feet of the car, that's probably not the scene of the crime, and that's very unlikely that would make it past the initial look at evidence. Finally, if Michael was killed at 7 p.m., as police estimate, why wasn't his body or the broken glass noticed when the building was searched between 8:30 and 9:30 p.m.? Some believe Michael is the victim of a premeditated murder carried out by several men and possibly instigated by high-ranking officials fearful of being named in the investigation. According to the reporter, and an eyewitness at the scene backs up this theory. At 10:20 p.m. on January 17th, a young man riding in his car looked over where the scene of the crime was and saw 5 to 6 men running toward a Volkswagen van. If Michael Frank had been abducted and then brought back to the building where he was killed, this would fit with the abduction theory. Now, that theory suggests that on the night of his death, Michael unlocked his own car, deactivating the alarm at the same time the men approached him. Michael did not keep regular office hours except for Tuesday staff meetings, so it appeared the attackers were familiar with his schedule. Now, the abduction theory would have that Michael Frank was later brought back and perhaps going to his office to find whatever paperwork or computer files or any of these sort of things in his office that would be part of the major investigation, which never went forward. Once there, he gets out of the car, perhaps sees his only chance for getting away, tries to make a break for it, perhaps receives one or more of his wounds at that time, goes to the north porch where he is finished off. That night, several people reported seeing a man with a pinstripe suit and a dark complexion lurking in the corrections building after hours. A composite drawing based on a witness description was made, and that would be this, you're talking 1980s technology and drawings. One other disturbing fact supports the theory that it was an assassination and cover-up. As the journalist Stephen Jackson points out, incredibly no paperwork about Michael's investigation that he had told everybody was about to be completed that week was found. And he says, shortly after Michael Frank's death, some people, some employees, some inmates spotted approximately 23 bags of shredded papers coming out of Michael's office. So after he's murdered, they just go into his office. There's 23 bags of shredded paperwork. That's something you have to wonder about. And who authorized the shredding of the documents from a murder scene? Now, the officials investigating Mike's murder don't want it solved because it goes much higher in the Oregon government. And then the latest update in this case, the man that was convicted, this Frank Gable, in 2019, a federal judge ordered that he be released from prison after finding evidence that he was wrongly kept from jurors during Gable's trial. So the criminal that they had this whole time was released from jail. I mean, you're talking 20, what is that, 97, 2007, 32 years later. If that's, is that 33 years? 33 prisoners, 33 years later. So no suspect ever caught. No investigation ever brought forward. This man was murdered. He never had his investigation come out to go into these high-level people that were corrupt in the Oregon prison system. And that's what he was brought in to do. He had cleaned up after the 1980 New Mexico. He's brought to Oregon to do the same thing. He's 4 days away from bringing this out. He said he's going to bring the information. He's murdered. Nobody's ever caught. Nobody's ever taken down. And all the paperwork is shredded. And we are to believe it is just another unsolved mystery. Oh, Keith says, yeah, it's scary how many unsolved mysteries there are out there. Yeah, it's pretty wild, man. It's some of my favorite stuff, though. Like I said, that kind of centered around the 1980 New Mexico penitentiary riot, but really that was just to kind of get him in the door and introduce him. He was brought in there in 1980 to clean up everything after just the full corruption and all the crazy stuff that was going on. I can play a couple of clips from that, though. That's the main unsolved mystery, but, you know, these prison riots are kind of cool.
Penitentiary in Santa Fe was the scene of the most murderous riot in U.S. prison history. Tomorrow, on the 32nd anniversary of that riot, Old Main, as it's now known, will be open for public tours. News 13's Crystal Gutierrez got a preview today.
Nice roll of the R's there, buddy. Gutierrez.
The remnants of what some called hell still remain. A charred dorm where inmates were housed and even gash marks left behind from when an inmate was decapitated. Inside these walls is where New Mexico's most notorious prison riot took place. And now New Mexicans can relive it.
This is where the riot actually started.
On February 2nd, 1980, the prison's most dangerous inmates housed in an open dorm while their cells were under construction took down 2 officers.
They just decided that night that they were going to take the place.
Then they bashed through bulletproof windows at central office with a fire extinguisher.
They wanted the keys. They wanted to have access to the entire facility.
By 2 that morning, 12 corrections officers were taken hostage, 3 shoved and locked inside this storage area. Fires started raging through the prison. Protective custody inmates became targets. Soon, SWAT teams and the National Guard would be called in.
My dad was one of the National Guard members called in to help take back the prison. He said the toughest part was going past this gate, getting locked in, and not knowing what they're
You're locked in now.
going to face next.
Man, you see some of these old, like this old footage from the 1980 prison riots, and like they got some couple documentaries on this thing. This stuff was, I mean, this place was completely trashed. They completely took over this prison. There's a couple stories throughout history, like a couple prison riots throughout history where they actually take full control of the prison, and this was one of them. If you believe the story, I know some of the numbers around it are suspect, but, you know, 33 prisoners. But 1980 penitentiary in New Mexico, if you ever want to look into it, it's a very interesting case. It's not really a spooky Sunday or an unsolved mystery, but it's a fun little documentary. There's a few of them on YouTube, and they're like they're from the 90s, so they got that old school vibe. All right, how's everybody doing? About an hour in. I think we'll do maybe one more topic. I had some Through the Looking Glass stuff, which is like Stargates. That'll lead us to some maybe some Project Montauk, some time travel stuff, and then we'll see where we're at from there. If you guys didn't see it, we did a stream on the main channel earlier for about 2 hours, and then like I said, these shows are usually an hour and a half, 2 hours as well. So glad everybody's here. Yeah, people have been really enjoying the show and the kind of chill podcast we've been doing over here too, because they're just not too serious. Everyone can come. We have a good time. And if when we want to go deep dives and all that other stuff, we have the other channels to do that. But over here, it's just nice to kind of dive into these old cases and kind of have fun with everything. Terry says he feels better. Well, I hope no one's getting ill out there. I mean, just stay, if you get sick, just quarantine yourself. Just drink a lot of fluids. I think we're all young and healthy enough to be good. I'm not going to give, you have some people giving medical advice out here. I don't think they're, really qualified to be doing so. I'm not a doctor. I just play one on YouTube, guys. But, I hope everyone's safe at the end of the day. No, don't price gouge anybody and just, be good. Evil Powder said he's nice and relaxing. Nice. No, don't drink turpentine. No, that's not going to help. I swear the turpentine is just a big farce. It's snake oil, guys. Do not drink it. All right, let me see this Project Looking Glass stuff. What time is it? 12:30 a.m.? It's perfect time. No, this is old school. The Project Looking Glass. Let me make sure I have all my links pulled up for this one. Like I said, we'll get into a little bit about Project Montauk. We'll talk about a little bit about the Philadelphia experiment. Stranger Things being based on a true story. We'll talk about Al Bielek, who claims to jump to the year 2749. This is where we get into the fantastical. Let me make sure I have everything lined up nice here. 9:25 for you. Oh, lucky, man. 3 hours earlier, huh? Yeah, someone earlier was like, oh, well, what time is it going to be? And he named some random time zone. I'm like, I don't know all that time. I don't know all the time zones. I know the time it's going to be here. You have to do the math. I'm just telling you what time it's going to be in the East. He's like, oh, man, you don't know what time it is in the GPT? I'm like, I don't even know where that is. No, don't buy 17,700 bottles of sanitizer. That's not good. I did hear they took that from that guy. Did anyone hear that part of the story? I saw that after that they someone came and took all the bottles. The government came in and took them and said they were giving them to charity. I don't know if I like the government being able to take his property, but dickhead move buying that many. I don't want to get worked up about it, but I think it's just such a dick move to buy up all products and then sell them for 8 times as much. But I don't know if I'm also cool with the government just taking them away from the guy. There's still his property. Hey, what's up, Rich? He said he's thinking about donating them. Yeah, I heard that part of it, but then I also heard, and this total, I don't know the facts of it or anything, but I heard that it was some department came in and took it, and then they were going to donate them. But we do have this little weird thing called the internet at our disposal, so I'll look it up quick. I'm just Googling man with sanitizer. Let's see how popular he is. Okay, nice. I'd be very happy if, I don't care how he got led to it, if he chose to donate them even after, not being able to sell it, I'm still cool with it. Tennessee man who stockpiled hand sanitizer donates 17,000 bottles.
Man who went viral.
Okay, I got it. I can read it. I got it. Donates the bottles ahead of investigation. Local church took 2/3 of the supply. Officials from the Attorney General office in Tennessee took the other 1/3 of the supply, which they will give to the Attorney General office in Kentucky, where some of the products were purchased earlier this month, according to the outlet. Okay, so they were going to come investigate him. He decided to donate as much as he could, and then the Attorney Generals came in after he already chose to donate them, and they're going to take them from there. Okay, that makes sense. So kind of I heard part of the story, and I didn't have the whole story. So nice. Yeah, I think it's a dickhead move what he did, and he's only doing it because he got caught. But still, as long as it gets into the hands of people that need it and no one's hoarding it, that's a good end to all of us. I think that's a good end to the case. I actually saw it. I just really quick skimmed a video that was talking about it. When we talked about it earlier, it was just at the point of being investigated and not allowed to sell. All right, a little off track there, but I'm glad we got to the nitty gritty of this. Someone's calling hoax. I'm not going deep into that. I just really can't stand the people that buy up this kind of stuff. All right. The White Rabbit. In Alice in Wonderland, the White Rabbit is introduced as always running late. He carries a watch that is running backwards, but when viewed through the looking glass, it shows the time correctly. Now, wacky conspiracy theorists often use the phrase going down the rabbit hole when dealing with the government and military cover-ups. But there is a reason for this. The government uses Alice's code. Project Aquarius and the Looking Glass Project at Facility S4. Above the doorframe leading into the lab that contains the Looking Glass Project at Facility S4 at Area 51, there is a white rabbit holding a backward watch mounted permanently to the frame. Permanently wired above the entrance to the Project Looking Glass laboratory, there was a large 3-foot-tall statue of a rabbit symbolic of Alice in Wonderland. This rabbit was described as having a clock in his hand and wearing a royal maroon vest with gold fringes and black buttons. Level 2 or Floor 2 was known as Alice's floor. The specific floor contained a laboratory for weapons research, development, 3 boardrooms, and provisions for emergency supplies. Also located on Level 4-2 were 2 specific areas which contained components for Project Sidekick. It was also the location for Project Looking Glass. This device utilized 6 electromagnetic fields and a height-adjustable rotating cylinder. So it's like one of these Project Stargate situations. This device, which injected with a specific type of gas, the entire assembly can be rotated 90 degrees from a horizontal axis. This allows scientists to warp the local fabric of space-time both forward or backwards by long or short distances relative to the present time. So this kind of is just going to get us into some kind of fun stuff about time travel. If anyone's not into it, I understand. We're just kind of having some fun towards the end of the show here. All right, let me make sure I have everything pulled up for the Montauk stuff. Oh, we're going to do a whole deep dive on 5G one of these weeks, too. I saw someone mention that in the chat. Yeah. It's a fun topic, deep topic, but the health concerns, it's a topic to dive into. Okay, so the Project Looking Glass device was used to predict the potential probability of future events. Once the device is tuned properly, images of probable future events are projected in open space within the fields, similar to a hologram. If you ever hear people talk about the 6G technology, they're talking about it being in a hologram form, where you can have this kind of hologram come in front of you. I haven't seen a lot of people talking about 6G, but the few articles and videos I've seen talk about this hologram aspect to it. Now, the data output of the device, images, and in some cases sounds, were captured via high-resolution audio-video. If multiple probabilities of the same event were displayed, they could be interlaced by the use of specific software platforms. Next to the Project Looking Glass device were 2 transport pads, which could teleport physical matter or humans from one location to the other instantly, but were not always reliable, and with certain disastrous outcomes during testing phases. Dan had the unfortunate experience of being in the room during one of those unfortunate outcomes and witnessed a death. So this is kind of like an outlook of the situation. It's one of these like kind of Stargate things. You can see at the top the Looking Glass device, if you've ever seen the movie Project Stargate. And they kind of say this technology came from old Tesla technology. They said Einstein worked on the technology, and this was during the Philadelphia experiment, and then eventually Project Montauk, which you may know from Stranger Things. And we'll get into that whole kind of theory on Project Montauk and Stranger Things and all the similarities between the two. Alright, let me just make sure I have all the videos pulled up. And it was Odd Reality that did the Stranger Things based on a true story video. And I think that kind of perfectly sums everything up. I think one of the videos are David Wilcock, which I can't stand, so I'll try my best to avoid that. It's still good music. Alright. The real-life conspiracy theories behind Stranger Things. The Stranger Things Season 2 trailer is here, with more 1980s callouts, but the real-life inspiration for the show goes much deeper than Ghostbusters. In fact, the entire series has its basis in widely believed, quote, conspiracy theories like the Philadelphia Project, Philadelphia Experiment, and the Montauk Project and MKUltra. Rumor has it that the government experimented with psychological warfare capabilities at Camp Hero in Montauk, a town on the tip of Long Island. Speculation took off in the mid-1980s when a man named Preston Nichols wrote a series of books detailing the experiments and his role in them. Due to the book's popularity, many other alleged participants came forward, including a man named Al Bielek, and we'll kind of get into a couple of his interviews and what he said. If anybody's interested in this, there is on the Davey Crocko 2 channel a full deep dive into the Project Montauk, but we're going to kind of do a quick, kind of wrapped up version here. Now, Bielek claimed he was actually born Edward Cameron, and he and his brother Duncan were the subject of Camp Hero experiments in the 1970s and 80s. Bielek explained that Duncan possessed extreme psychic powers that were tested and strengthened in the Montauk chair, a piece of furniture that enhanced Duncan's powers. So much like this, through the looking glass technology, in Montauk it was known as the Montauk chair that you would sit in and you would be able to predict future events. There was time travel. There was a lot of those kind of things surrounded around this Montauk chair. After a few years, the brothers were fed up and decided to escape. Bielek says Duncan released, and this is where Stranger Things comes into it. When they were trying to get out, when you were sitting in this chair, you could kind of bring things into fruition by thinking of them. And one of the stories is that they released a huge monster from his subconscious. I know this sounds a lot like Stranger Things, that ran loose in Montauk, eating anything it could find and scaring everyone it laid eyes on. In order to destroy the monster, they destroyed all the equipment that powered the Montauk chair. The project was shut down, participants brainwashed, and underground facilities covered with cement.
What? There's no way that you worked at Montauk, because Montauk is a joke. It's fake. Well, he kept on talking, and the next thing you know, he sat down, and we stayed up all night, and I had like scribbles all over the placemats. And I mean, this guy, and it's a shame that he doesn't want to go public, because I'll tell you, he's got an amazing amount of information. And I didn't go into it very much yesterday. Some people asked me to go into it a little bit more, so I will do that. The reason why I'm telling you all this is not for you to have a fatalistic sense of doom. It's to also enlighten you to the fact that this is going on, that it's real, and that the Nazis were very, very proactive in rebuilding all of the ancient secrets that had been lost, because for the first time they had a world power government. When you say you want to go somewhere, you meditate on it, and a vortex opens up in front of the ship, and you fly through it, and you pop through a wormhole, and you end up somewhere else, okay? So that's what the chair does. The chair is the interface with your consciousness.
Warning.
So when you understand that your consciousness is interfacing through the chair, that helps you get to a point in yourself where you can see that the chair is a psychic amplifier.
So that's kind of describing the Montauk chair, and it kind of weaves into the story of the Through the Looking Glass and just the time travel technology in general. And this also has to do with the Philadelphia experiment.
Filled with dramatized stories of scientific research that some The letter claims that 12 years previously, at the height of World War II, the Navy had conducted several radical experiments in Philadelphia.
Oh, my bad. Was that muted? Oh, I was just saying that, How far back did it go? Did I read the donation? Oh, my bad. Yeah, I had it muted when I was playing that clip. But Keys donated $5 saying that she appreciated the shows more than I know, and it reminded her of an older time when the internet was more innocent. And I was just saying that, you know, there's a lot of channels that are here. There's a lot of channels that stop by. There's a lot of people from the other channel that come by here. And I warned everybody, sometimes we go down these, like, it can be cheesy, it can be like these old 90s dark matter shows that are kind of, you know, gay and just old and weird and annoying. And, like, they're cheesy, like, old conspiracy stuff. But, like, some of it we're just having fun with. You know, these aren't, like, our deepest, darkest thoughts and everything we believe. Like, these are just fun conspiracies. And I was saying, how many videos have you gone back to watch that you used to love on YouTube and they're just gone now? And we're just seeing it more and more and more. Every time I'm doing research for something, like, I usually have a few videos in my head, like, okay, I remember seeing this, and it had this one part that I want to pull up, and you'll go to find the video, can't find the channel, you find somebody that mirrored it, that video gets deleted, so it's just, you know, it sucks, man.
Aboard a destroyer, the USS Eldridge, that made it.
Yeah, and then, and I'll start this video up too, but, then even dLive, I hear, Ethan Ralph, channel got axed from dLive, so it's like, man, like, she's not safe anywhere.
Simply vanish into thin air. During one trial, the ship rematerialized 200 miles away in Norfolk, Virginia, before disappearing again and reappearing once more in Philadelphia. The letter attributes the technology that made the ship invisible to Albert Einstein, saying the great genius had secretly developed a single unified theory to tie together all of the laws of physics.
A unified field theory combines the equations that govern the interaction of matter with itself and with light, and with both of those with gravity. The idea is, if we can come up with this elegant set of equations that explains the way the universe works, perhaps we can do something with those. Bend light, change the nature of space-time, teleport, render things invisible.
And then I was just also saying, like, some of these videos, these once a week shows are just, you know, like I was telling people on the main channel, because a lot of people came over, I'm like, some of you guys just aren't going to enjoy this stuff. Like, if it's not for you, I totally understand. Like, this is totally for fun and for us to have a hangout where it's not so serious. And I'll still get comments from people like, why are you doing this? Like, why would you cover this topic? What do you believe in fucking time travel? It's like, okay, I got it. You're super woke, you know everything, but I'm going to have fun once a week on the, you know, obviously we're having fun over there, but I want to do this show for, you know, personal reasons. It's just very fun to do. It's not a lot of, you're not really thinking too crazy. You can do it late at night and just have fun with everybody. And the audience has been really one of the best things about it. Everyone's getting along. Everyone's just having a fun time hanging out. It's been a great place to meet every week. So you guys were talking about Bitchute too, and I agree. Bitchute's got a lot of videos you can't find on YouTube that people won't even try to put up on YouTube. And I think if they revamped a couple things, I think could really blow up. But I also like it not being blown up and not being this site that everyone goes to. So if it can find a happy medium that it can sustain itself and get streaming, I think they got a really good thing going. Also like Joshua TV, I think he's doing a really good job. He also started like a little radio station thing that I was talking to him about. I'm going to talk to him a little more about it and do an interview with him for you guys. To really explain what he's going to do with this radio show. But It's like a 24-hour kind of radio show thing. So, you know, a lot of people are doing big things, and, you know, when you see someone get kicked off of dLive, you're like, you know, just need this third alternative to really step up and take over. Because dLive looks like a kid's site, you know? Let's be honest, it looks like a kid's video gaming site with weird lemons and stupid stuff. Bitchute's like a perfect kind of adult, go find your hidden videos. But I think they need to tweak a couple things on it. Oh, no, the sound is on. I was watching it that time. It's a good try, though. I appreciate you letting me know, but now you're just fucking with me. Okay, I got you, Electric. I get it. No audio. You're hilarious. Everyone thinks you're the funniest person here. All right, so you go from the Project Looking Glass. You talk a little bit about the Philadelphia experiment. Talked about the Montauk Project and the Montauk Chair with Al Bielek. I do have a couple interviews from Al Bielek of him explaining the time travel.
Stranger Things is a Netflix original drama that takes place in a small town in the year 1983. The story follows several people from the town and how they are affected by top-secret government experiments that involve supernatural forces. This show is now extremely popular, and it intentionally mimics everything from the 1970s and 80s that has to do with horror, science fiction, and fantasy.
So this is a video from Odd Reality. I don't know if he's still making videos on YouTube. His channel's still there. I haven't seen a new kind of conspiracy video in a long time. But he did this video, Stranger Things, based on a true story. And it has to do with the Montauk Project. And I think it's a great video.
You'll easily notice traces of The Goonies, E.T., Stand By Me, Poltergeist, and Alien. There is so much more to this series as well, including the fact that it's inspired by actual events, and if you're still watching, then I assume that you have watched all 8 episodes just like I have. So let's get started. The first episode begins at a government laboratory that is also located within this small town, and things seem to have gotten out of hand as some sort of monster is on the loose inside the building. So we are immediately introduced to the supernatural aspect of this story. Next, we meet the boys that the story centers around: Dustin, Lucas, Mike, and Will. They enjoy playing Dungeons and Dragons. One night after playing, the boys take off and go their separate ways. Will rides his bike through the woods, passing by Hawkins' laboratory. He ends up having a run-in with the monster that seems to have escaped from the government facility and vanishes without a trace. After people notice Will's disappearance, his mom and his friends begin to look for him. Meanwhile, one of the human test subjects with psychic abilities has also escaped the research lab. During a night when the boys were out looking for Will, they stumbled upon this test subject, which happens to be a young girl that doesn't talk with the number 11 tattooed on her arm. So they just call her 11, or L for short. That's a generous dose of symbolism all on its own.
Someone mentioned they only watched the first season. I watched I think I watched the first season and maybe a couple episodes into the second season. I think with the Corona panic, I don't even know what season they're in, but I think I heard that they shut down shooting for now, like a lot of shows. I don't really get into these TV shows too much because some of the stuff just beats you over the head a little too much. But if you can sit back and relax and have fun, I think the first season is a real fun time. I thought Black Mirror used to be a good show until it got a little too Hollywood as well. But other than that, I mean, I don't even turn on Netflix anymore.
Anyway, this is where I wanted to get to in the story. The boys, especially Mike, start getting to know Elle. During the process, she has multiple flashbacks of being in the Hawkins laboratory, where her psychic abilities were exploited, and that's what caused the rip in dimensions that allowed the demonic entity into our world. Now, what's interesting about all this is that it's based on a true story. The Montauk Project.
So he does a good job at comparing the Montauk to the Stranger Things. I know we briefly talked about Al Bielek and the Montauk chair and creating the monster and how that relates. And if you've seen the show, you kind of understand all the references. But he does a good job, even if you haven't seen it, kind of talking about Montauk and some of the mind control and experiments they were running out of there.
The Montauk Project was a series of secret United States government projects conducted at Camp Hero and/or Montauk Air Force Station on Montauk, Long Island. It was secretly developing a powerful psychological war weapon. The Montauk Project is a continuation of the controversial Philadelphia experiment, which took place around October 28, 1943. A report was prepared and presented to Congress and was soundly rejected as far too dangerous. So a proposal was made directly to the Department of Defense promising a powerful new weapon that can drive an enemy insane, inducing the symptoms of schizophrenia at the touch of a button. Without congressional approval, the project would have to be top secret and secretly funded. The Department of Defense approved. The U.S. Air Force had a decommissioned base at Montauk, New York, not far from Brookhaven, which had a complete SAGE radar installation. This site was large and remote, and water access would allow equipment to be moved in and out undetected. Equipment was moved to Camp Hero at the Montauk base in the late 60s and installed in an underground bunker beneath the base. According to researchers, to mask the nature of the project, the site was closed in 1969 and donated as a wildlife refuge, with the provision that everything underground would remain the property of the Air Force.
Now, the other side to that would be things were getting out of control. The people that were there, that experiments were being ran on, were getting fed up, and they were going to use the powers of the Montauk chair and the other devices that they had there against it, creating this monster that would run wild, and that was kind of the basis for the Stranger Things show.
Although in reality, the base remained open until the 1980s. The park has never been opened to the public under the excuse of environmental contamination. Many dedicated researchers claim that the experiments became fully active in the early 1980s. Between the Philadelphia experiment in the 1940s and the Montauk Project in the 1980s, numerous trials were conducted to do with telekinesis, teleportation, remote viewing, time travel, and of course, MK-Ultra mind control.
And that's the basis of the main character of the show, is the mind control experiments they were running on her. And he gets directly into Al Bielek and his stories of time travel from his claims of being on the boat that was in the Philadelphia experiment, and actually jumping off in the middle of this experiment and time warping first 40 years and then into the year 1940 into the 1980s, then warping into the year 2749. So they're pretty outrageous claims. I understand this, but it wouldn't be fun if they weren't outrageous.
It was primarily used by the U.S. Air Force during the Second World War.
They wanted a large number of programmed boards
Al Bielek
to be used for mind control operations.
The Montauk Boys program, basically, what they were doing, they would pick up boys, young men.
Preston Nichols, he wrote the books that kind of exposing the project.
Off the street and take them to this facility.
And it started by picking them up off the streets around Long Island, then New York. Lost kids.
Yeah, I wrote a comment in the thing saying that, I have Netflix available to stream just because the girl likes watching a couple of shows, and Rich said, yeah, if you got a missus, you need to have some normal entertainment every now and then. And it's just like, you can't go full rant on Girlfriend sometimes, or like say you want to go out with somebody and you're talking to them, you can't initially hit them with the, oh, don't watch that because they're gonna put that into your mind. Like, they just don't want to hear that shit right off the bat. You know, you can kind of throw little shots in here and there. You can kind of get your point across, but you know, if every show that they turn on when they just want to hang out, you're telling them they're being mind controlled like a little sheep, you know, maybe they just won't watch shows with you anymore. But yeah, it's just funny, man. So Al Bielek is going to continue to talk about the Montauk Project. I'm going to play quite a bit of this video, and we'll play a couple of videos from him, and then we'll kind of wrap it up.
Left home, living off the streets, do anything for a living to make a few bucks.
Runaway teens, prostitutes, foster children, children of drug addicts, whomever was considered expendable, and no one would miss them.
Now that's Stuart Swerdlow, and he was also involved in this, what they call the Montauk Boys, where you have Al Bielek, Preston Nichols, Stuart Swerdlow. He's a very, very odd one, this Stuart Swerdlow.
But they would also have scouting missions in cities and other locations. They knew the type of genetics they were looking for, and if they saw someone that matched those genetics and that person was easily grabbable, they would take that person. Sometimes they would throw you in a cement room and they would hit you with a wooden pole, or they would take some kind of metal rod and hit you with it. There were a number of different people that would administer the tortures, experiments, programming, etc. They were not always the same person, so that I would not develop any kind of relationship with them, and they would not feel a relationship with me. I wouldn't call them handlers particularly. I think some of them were just kind of automatons. They were sometimes soldiers. They looked like soldiers. Sometimes they looked like ordinary people off the street. I never knew what to expect, and they were always different. They're always male, never female that would do these kinds of things.
The beatings were the most horrible. And the fact that they were doing it without the approval of the kids.
Stranger Things music was solid.
You would get to a point where you just didn't even care anymore because you couldn't even feel the pain anymore. I think that was a form of dissociation, and that's what they wanted. They wanted you to dissociate, fracture the mind. That's how the programming begins.
I did see a couple of their sessions. It was disgusting, made me sick.
Can you describe a little bit of that?
I would just as soon die.
The amazing things that they could think of to create fear, anxiety, and fracturing. I don't know how human beings could even think of such things, but they did.
So they go through the whole process of matching up things in Stranger Things to government projects like MK Ultra, like Project Montauk, and the Philadelphia experiment leads into Project Montauk, even though it doesn't have to do with Stranger Things. The Philadelphia experiment was a jump off for their time travel technology, and then Montauk was kind of harnessing the chair technology, but they also used these other MK Ultra tactics at the facility. Now, Al Bielek, who was one of the main people involved in this, claimed to be a time traveler who visited the year 2749. He was speaking in that video we just watched. I'll try to pull him up. Just so you remember who he is. This was Al Bielek.
For a living to make a few bucks.
Runaway.
Hello, my name is Alfred Bielek, more commonly known as Al Bielek. Original family name is Edward Cameron. I have been involved in the Philadelphia experiment,
Now he's definitely getting fantastical, but I like the guy. I like Al Bielek. Just seems like a nice, trustworthy guy. I know he's telling us he jumped off the boat in the middle of the Philadelphia experiment and traveled 40 years and then hundreds of years into the future, but this guy, he's got kind eyes.
Montauk Project, time travel, alien connections at the Montauk Project, and some other projects, all of which have been secret over the years, most of which have never been declassified. I wound up in the 28th century, and this was in a time period of 2749 to 2751 AD. Talk about changes in civilization, society, and everything else. It was drastically changed from what we saw in 2137, as this is now 600 years later. The cities were enormous. The cities were beautiful. They had ground-based cities, much as we have always had them, but they also had something else, floating cities. Floating cities, due to anti-gravity techniques being perfected sufficiently that they could float an entire city, which was perhaps not as large as any of our current cities. It was round, or very nearly round, but it floated on this platform, and they could move the city any place they wanted, remaining floating in the air, 4,000 or 5,000 feet above the ground, perhaps, or a little less, depending on what they wanted. But the size of the city was vertical rather than horizontal, 2,200 stories high. That's about 2.5 miles. The cities could move anywhere on the planet. Basically, they stayed hovering and floating. Or if they didn't like a particular location, they'd move somewhere else. There wasn't that much traffic in moving cities, I can assure you, because the world population in that era, the 28th century, was only 500 million, and I was instructed later that that was where they had held it for centuries. There would be...
I think they just threw the Georgia Guidestones in here. You know, maintain the population under 500 million, perpetual balance with nature. We know about the Guidestones.
No more than approximately 500 million population. Some of the features of this, let's start from the political standpoint. As I learned, all of these cities, whether they're ground-based cities, which the majority were, because they had to do manufacturing, they had to have agriculture and various other things to supply the needs of civilization. But all of them, whether floating or ground-based, were rather interesting in their governmental form. They had essentially no government. There's no government as we know it today. There was no money, there's no banks, there's no political jurisdictions, and it resolved down to what would be best called a city-state structure, where the city is the state. And any other cities from that one are independent and operate in their own independent manner. So that was the major change there. There was no elected government. There was no appointed government. There was no government as we had ever seen it in the past.
Okay, now that's just wishful thinking. No elected government. Well, that's kind of what we have now, the unelected officials. But, I mean, they don't even put the public face on it. Sounds like some wishful thinking into the future. No, I'm not a time traveler. If I was a time traveler, I'd have a better grasp on things. I think we would all, I think we'd all take a trip to the future, and we'd all check out the past, and kind of, you kind of have fun either way. I guess, where does your mind instantly go when you think of time travel? Are you someone that thinks of you would travel into the future to see how crazy things get? And, you got to, kind of, put the parameters in from the get-go. Can you time travel, but you're not messing with anything, you're just an observer? Or are you time traveling and getting involved in things, like if you go into the past and you talk about the butterfly effect or something? I understand it's an Ashton Kutcher movie, but interesting theory of, going in, if you change one thing, you got the classic, I'd go back and kill this, crazy dictator. It's well, you probably wouldn't, but you'd probably get jacked immediately. But, I think all of us would go into the past and want to see, our own history or just other things throughout history. And then also other people would probably be interested in going into the future and just seeing, okay, how is it 500 years from now? Or, would you go back to, the time of the dinosaurs? Or, I don't know, what would you guys be interested in doing if you had the ability to time travel? I guess is what I'm getting at. Well, yeah, the time of Jesus. I see a lot of people saying that. Jordan Peterson has a lot of theories. If he could just travel back 2 years in time, he'd probably not pick up that prescription. Andy would go back and help AH. You diabolical motherfucker. Yeah, you got people saying they'd go back to the beginning just to kind of see how things were created, see how it really was, you know, instead of the things that they tell us. Linda says the 1800s and 1400s to 1550. Yeah, did some odd times. See how they really built those buildings. I think this is like a fun thing to talk about. You know, you don't have to get too into fantasy land about it, but you know, when you're younger, it's something you think about, and when you talk about these topics, it's just kind of fun to think about. But you know, a lot of people think that the government has these technologies.
They found out each city was run by an intelligent computer, synthetic intelligence, synthetic consciousness, a highly radioactive crystalline structure. Who built them, I had no idea. Nobody seemed to know, but they've been there for hundreds of years.
I mean, guessing into the future, when he made these predictions, or what he says, or things that he saw into the future, you know, this was before artificial intelligence was something that we really talked about. And, you know, so he's predicting that basically you have an AI overlord, and this is obviously something they're trying to bring down the pipe against us. So these aren't like absurd claims.
Actually, I started seeing some very strange things on TV. I started asking questions. And the first thing I noted was the references geographically to the United States, and I noticed severe changes in the coastlines and the interior, and the fact that Europe didn't look at all like when I had remembered it. And I started asking questions. What's happened? What's been going on? That's when they said, I want to see maps of what's happened and some description. I said, it looks like there's been major earth changes. And I said, yes, there have been. It all happened in the period between the beginning of the 21st century and basically the year 2025. All right, what happened? So they told me, they showed me maps, and to describe it briefly, the east coast of the United States was rather heavily changed, not as much as the west coast, but neither one for that matter. None of the changes I saw would fit some of the very far out maps promulgated in the late 20th century by various people such as the I Am America group and Michael Gordon Scallion and his series of maps.
So he predicts some major shifts because of either destruction or you know, a lot of things that happen over time. But he kind of explains it here, and you got the Mississippi River, and you see these on the coastal lines. This basically represents that this would all be underwater. So you got the edge of New York, Florida's all underwater, and then obviously part of California. And you see these with the like Agenda 2021, Agenda 2030 maps and stuff like this.
They were what I would consider the worst case possible scenario, and it didn't happen that way. But what I did see was changes in the East Coast, particularly when you went south towards where Georgia, Carolinas and Georgia is. The Georgia coastline going inland, so that Atlanta, instead of being about 100 miles from the ocean, was only 3 miles from the ocean. A lot of the east coast of Georgia was gone. Parts of North Carolina had been chopped off. Florida was gone completely, except for the area of the Panhandle.
All right, well, you know, Florida gone. I mean, I think we can all handle that. So basically, Al Bielek, his main claim to fame and his main story is that he was on the boat during the Philadelphia experiment, jumps off in the middle of it. Now they say when people are woke up or when they come back from this experiment and the ship is moved to another location, because the point of it was to be a cloaking device for the ship with this Tesla and Einstein technology that they were using. But what happens is the ship disappears. When it comes back, people are like fused into the ship. People are dead. Now he says he jumped off in the middle of this, which he was caught in some kind of time warp continuum. You know the words they use. And he was first moved to 1980, where he's Edward Cameron at the Montauk facility. And then eventually he's talking about the 28th century. So far out claims, but just a fun story overall. If you ever want to look deeper into it, I think I have one on the main channel still, so we should have archived episodes. I've been doing my best to get a couple over on this channel, and I think I got about 5 or 6 already, where I edited them down and put them up on this channel. And then all the episodes are still on my other channel. So let me see if I can find the full Montauk one for you guys. I should have a Spooky Sunday playlist, but will YouTube show it to me? That's a whole different story. It's a whole different ball game. And we'll be wrapping up here shortly. But I'll give you guys the whole playlist if I can. Now this is old school. You can see some of the first episodes where I still didn't have the good OBS setup. We didn't have the microphone, so some of the first episodes, since it's like 20 weeks now, are very old school looking. But let me see here. So yeah, there is a playlist with 16 episodes on it, and now there's all the ones on this channel now. So episode 3 was the Montauk Project, and we really did a deep dive into the technology. Look at, I'm wearing my little sport coat. I was all dressed up for that episode. That was a fun episode. So let me give you guys the link to this. So if you want to do a deeper dive or just watch more about the Montauk Project, I just put the link. It's got about 2,600 views. This is a fun episode that we did. We went all the way deep dive into the Al Bielek thing. We talked a little more about Preston Nichols. We went to the full Stuart Swerdlow documentary. I think we played the Stranger Things episode. Yeah, and we got into the facility more. So this was a 2-hour and 20-minute episode just on Montauk. So if you're interested in that, there's the link to it. For next week's episode, I have an update on that boy that was killed in Kentucky by the weird canine. A couple dogmen stories. We'll be doing some more crypto stories. I wanted to talk a little bit about old games like Illuminati and the baseball connections, and also talk about some old games from, like ancient Mesopotamia and these old games that they used to play. And I got a couple other stories that I'm just kind of trying to prep up into the show to see if it'll kind of round out a whole episode for next week. But there is on Discord a full folder that people always give ideas, and we put the vote up and stuff. Someone asked if I think they referenced the Montauk Project and Eternal Sunshine. It's been years since I've seen that movie. I couldn't tell you. Let me make sure if I missed any donations. I think we're good. If anybody's got any questions, or if anybody wants to make any suggestions for topics they would like to see on Spooky Sunday, we'll hang out for like a minute and then we'll get out of here. So this episode ended up being 2 hours, so it's nice. We covered the unsolved owl theory murder in the beginning. We talked about the murder mystery at the prison, and then we did a little bit on the Montauk Project. So a little bit everything this episode. One Step has a premiere, he says, so there's the link for that. I don't know what it's about, but you guys should go check it out for sure. Make sure you're subbed to his channel. Terry says promulgated. I don't know. Elle says the Sunshine Spotless Mind reference Montauk. It took place on a Montauk beach, and it was about erasing their memories. Nice. I did not. It's been so long since I've seen that movie. I don't remember much about it. A lot of people like that movie, though. If you're talking Jim Carrey, the 90s were great. Truman Show is great. And then I can't condone any of his actions from there. But yeah, with that said, we're just going to get out of here, guys. If you guys do want to... I'm going to grab the Discord link real quick. And if any of you guys want to give suggestions or, anything like that as far as Spooky Sundays, or just really anything in general, if you just want to kind of hang out and talk to people. It hasn't got too spooky. Sometimes people are talking about shit that I don't know what the hell they're talking about in there, and I don't like to moderate it too much, so just try to be cool, man. Like, just don't, how fucking Discords get, But if you want to go in and just hang out and be normal, if you guys can handle just being normal, here's the Discord link. I'm doing it. I don't like to give it out all the time, but there's the link. And there's a folder in there for Spooky Sundays, and you can put suggestions in there, and then there's other folders labeled other things if you just want to post links or just talk shit. All right. And then I'll just also add that if you do want to support the show and support what we're doing as far as all the channels and stuff like that, you can do so while I'm off air through PayPal, and read the messages. I'll get back to you, and it's highly appreciated. Eddie wants us to know that white nibbas be tripping. We all needed to know that, man, and we appreciate you letting us know that. Oh yeah, check out the stream from earlier. Check out the premiere One Step is about to do. And as always, I will see you on one of the many channels in the next one.